Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1970s.
I walked the streets, brooding on the bitter irony that all I wanted to do for humanity, for life, would be cheated by death. Unless I could cheat death.
This is episode 175, recorded October 26th, 2022.
Gruesome Magazine.
I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this podcast about horror films released between 1970 and 1979. Each episode, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, and I will take a look at another classic, or not so, why am I getting so melancholy? Our not so classic film from this wondrous, groovy, gory, or influential decade. And I threw an or instead of an and. You know, we're just kind of like that. All right, with me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
Well, I'm a little, on one hand, this, and on the other hand, that. I don't know. But I'm ready. I'm ready. It's good to be here.
Yes. Jeff Hyde.
I was going to get out my wife's wig, but it got gone.
It got gone? Oh, no. That means somebody else is wearing it. That's awesome. All right. Also joining us tonight is Bill Mulligan, writer, director of special effects guru, and cat wrangler. No, all around nice guy. How you doing, Bill?
I'm just not myself today.
Well, who are you, sir?
I've got a wig right over there I could have put on if someone had mentioned that. I'm in my room of horrors, so yeah.
All right.
Oh, well.
Dr. Bill Jekyll. All right. We are, if you guys haven't figured anything out, we are here to review Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. We're going back to the Hammer Film Library for their really wacky 70s offerings.
Oh, yeah.
This one's really interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't they remaking this now? I think they are.
Already did. Are they doing it again?
When did they remake it?
Oh, with Sean Young and one of the guys from Wings. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, I think Hammer is actually remaking it.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember the gentleman that's going to be. He's a comedian, and he transdresses.
Oh, Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard, yes, is playing both Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. So
okay, yeah. So it's going to be more comedy, I'm guessing.
It certainly could be, but he's done serious roles. If you saw him in Hannibal,
yeah,
the TV show.
I saw a thing where Bates said he thought that he should have dressed in drag for the Sister Hyde part.
Well, but instead they found a woman who looks like she could be his sister. So I mean, I think the two of them are brilliantly cast.
Yeah, it works because they both have the same part and everything in the hair. So there was
brilliantly,
a lot of
creepily
cast. But yeah, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde definitely twist up the Robert Louis Stevenson story quite a bit. Is this like, other than maybe Frankenstein and Dracula, is this like the most made horror film?
I would argue that if you want to interpret it broadly, that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of the most common things, because really, isn't that sort of the premise for The Wolfman and things, serial killer movies and stuff, like, American Psycho. I mean, that whole premise of
Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and in fact, this covers 3 different traditional movies, right? I mean, it's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde as a basis, but we also have Jack the Ripper, and we also have a decent chunk of the Body Snatcher. Another.
That's Robert Louis Stevenson,
we got a little bit of hair and
hair.
The girl singing.
Not Invasion of the Body Snatcher, but the Body Snatcher.
The Body Snatcher.
You had me going there for a second.
Val Luton's The Body Snatcher.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's get into the card so we can get into all our neat stuff when we talk about the film, because this is going to be fun. Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde from 1971, directed by Roy Ward Baker. written by Brian Clemens. We've talked about him a bit. Robert Louis Stevenson, of course, did the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. We're talking about him.
I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, the cast includes Ralph Bates, Martine Beswick, Gerald Sim, Susan Broderick, Louis Vander, and Dorothy Allison. Release date was October 17th, 1971 in the UK, and we got to see it in April 72 in the US. Domestic box office was $202,000, I guess. That's where we're at.
Yep.
It's also known as, Jeff, what are we going to, you want to say this one?
It's pretty much the way it looks. O medica e arma do monstro.
Oh, of course.
Which means the doctor and the monster's sister.
Oh, that's great. That's exactly
everything else,
what I was going to say.
Everything else was just Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, only in whatever language made sister,
Synopsis: a Victorian scientist tests a serum that transforms him into a sensuous, I was going to say a different word, a sensuous murderess, which is just a great sentence in and of itself. I picked this monster, so but I love my Hammer films, and we'll get to me last because we're going to start off with the one and only Bill Mulligan. Bill, when did you first see this film, and what was your first impression?
When did I first see this? I don't think I really saw this until I got the videotape. I never saw it in the movie theater. Now I'm saying that, I think I'm wrong. I do remember seeing this in a movie theater, so I must have watched it. At college, we had midnight every week. We had midnight movies, and for a year or two, I was the one picking the midnight movies. So,
oh man,
I used that power to fill in any gaps in my. I always wanted to see this one. I don't care if anybody else does. So so I did get to see it on. It seems like it was with a double feature with something, but I can't remember what. And it strikes me then as now as mid-level Hammer. I mean, it's got that 70s. We've talked about how Hammer was going down in the 70s, and they were flailing around looking for that magic thing that would mix. And I just feel like watching it now, you could see that Hammer was falling on hard times. The rich production values are not quite there. They still has it. I mean, even lesser Hammer looks better than most productions. They always had a level of quality, a level of class about them. But it's you could see where once, if this had been a Terence Fisher movie, there would have been these great camera movements and everything, and there's not as much of that there. They had to get by. But I'll give them credit for creativity. The transformation scenes are not perfect, but they're well done, and they're trying for something more than the stupid just slow motion dissolves that they most Dr. Jekyll transformations use.
True.
I love Martine Beswick. She's always been a favorite. Ralph Bates, never really warmed up to him, though. He seems like a good guy and everything. Just his films for Hammer, they kept trying. They thought he was going to be the replacement for Cushing and Lee, and no. But that's a pretty unfair thing to stick on anybody. But he's fine in this, and the idea of making bringing Jack the Ripper into this is cool too. The only problem with that, and this is a problem I have with a lot of movies, usually not with Hammer movies though, there's not really anyone to root for here. Dr. Jekyll, the whole premise of Dr. Jekyll is usually he's a good person who Hyde brings out the evil part of him and all, but Jekyll himself is a good person. Well, this Jekyll is not a good person. He's arguably just as bad as Sister Hyde, maybe worse. So yeah, that kind of takes the whole thing away from him. The only person to root for is the woman in peril, and she's fine. I don't wish any ill on her, but she's a very passive presence. The audience doesn't really have a hero in this.
She might even be passive aggressive.
No. You might want to root for his friend, the doctor, but he's a sleaze, just a lech. So really, there's no good one. There's nobody good in this movie, that worth being a hero. But I still like it. It's Hammer. Come on.
It's Hammer. Jeff Mohr, sir. When did you first see Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, and what was your first impression?
Just recently. I had not seen this before. I don't know. Wasn't something I looked at and went, this is, as I pick up more and more Hammer films, this wasn't ever at the top of my list. So, however, and it does seem to me to answer the question nobody asked, what if Dr. Jekyll's potion turned him into a woman? But in the end, it's kind of interesting. And it's also the way they did it very simply
Kitty cats.
With showing like male hands looking like they belong to the female face and vice versa was creepy. It was creepy and very, in this case, both Bates and Beswick have kind of an androgynous look to them. I don't know if it's the makeup or if it's just because, and then when they pulled her hair back so tight, it just was, it was disturbing in its own right. As far as, the basic plot of it is pretty kind of not all that inventive, I don't think.
Not all that inventive.
Although we do have the, it's fun to do this writer right away again after we just did a couple. What did we figure out? Captain Kronos, and what was the other one we just did?
Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Yes. And so we're hitting the trifecta here. So anyway, I enjoyed it. I watched it twice, because I was like, there was a couple things I wasn't sure of. I didn't quite get the flashback of the beginning, so I was trying to figure out. And I didn't get right away that the blind guy was hair. After they threw lye in his eyes, I guess. His lion eyes, it got him in trouble.
There's a song in there somewhere.
So anyway, I enjoyed it. The acting was good. It's fun. It's a Hammer film, but I agree with Bill. It feels like you could see sort of the end coming, and I feel like they're reaching for, you read some of the actors' comments and things in the background, and that they're kind of reaching to find some sort of bullet that's going to help. One of which might be nudity and cross-sexual, things. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
There's going to be a lot to talk about those thoughts. So if I remember correctly, and this is, I don't know if I've manufactured this memory or if this is how it happened, but I do remember seeing it on TV. Of course it was cut, but if I remember correctly, they had a Dr. Jekyll week that they played at in the afternoons, in the mid to late 70s, and because they would do that on the channel, because there wasn't a whole lot of talk shows in the afternoon, because so for an hour and a half you had movies for the longest time. I don't know if you guys remember that, and they would do themed weeks.
They were great,
and I remember seeing I Monster, which is a Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee joint, right? And I remember seeing that around the same time. So in my head, I either saw it as a part of a week, or it was part of like a theme for the month on the Saturday Night Feature. I don't know, but it was in the same frame. But regardless of that, I did see it very young, very early, and I enjoyed it. But there was. For me at that point, I was more in the okay, let's get out in Costello and have Boris Karloff running around in that mask, because that's a lot more fun. But I've always seen this as one of those films for Hammer where they are doing that reaching, and they are doing that exploration. They're still stuck in the Gothic horror, which is what they're known for, but they haven't really gotten out of that. And by the time they really get fully out of it, that's the last film they ever make, right? So it's too late. It's too and Ralph Bates, this is probably, of the Ralph Bates films, I think this might be his best role, because he does have a lot to do here, and his character is a little bit more complex than usual, even though you can't root for him. And then, like you said, his friend would be canceled nowadays. he's definitely one of those skeevy guys. But anyway, so I watched it again, of course, this week for the show, and I want to say it holds up, but it kind of doesn't, because the way they handle the themes of it is so misguided. You know what I mean? They just don't really catch it, and it's kind of a product, but that's a product of the time, right? They really didn't quite get what they were doing, and it shows, and it's a little painful, but there's the Hammer charm to it, right? It's a Hammer film. It's got a good cast. Martine Beswick is very fetching as Mrs. Hyde. They call it Mrs. Edwina Hyde, but I don't think I ever heard her called Edwina. I think that's
I don't remember that either.
It was just Mrs. Hyde, and that was because he saw Hyde Park. Was that? Is that in the story, or is that?
Yeah, it's like I always love scenes like that where someone's got to come up with a name, so they just look around the room, and it's like, yes, my name is Cardboard Box Doorshoe. That's it.
Yes,
and like,
and I believe that the Professor Robertson character was modeled to be a Peter Cushing acted character. It felt like that.
Oh, okay.
Except for the sliminess, which probably would have come across a little bit more classy.
Classy, slimy. But I thought that guy was great in this. I mean, he really sold it. Yeah. He was so gleeful in his lechery. You know, like not apologizing.
Lechery is a good way to put it, right?
I'm twirling a mustache.
You're watching this and you're thinking, I'm going, wait, there's a dead body. You told that guy you were coming right over. And as soon as she starts taking her clothes off, it's like, what's more important?
Men will be men.
Yeah, right. Man's got to know his priorities.
But even when he's like, when we first meet him and he runs into Susan, right? And he just
hits on her within 10 seconds. I'll carry a book for you.
Right.
And then her brother.
He's hip to what's going on. It's like,
thanks. His interaction's a little weird.
I'll carry her book from her from this point on, Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester. So there's a lot to discuss, but let's take a look at some of the posters first, and go through the cast. This looks like it's probably is that an actual poster, or is that like one of the?
It's something I've seen, but it doesn't have credits or anything. So maybe it was. I don't know if it was something for.
It's got an X on it.
It
does. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty cheap ass poster, but it does give you what you want. You know what you're heading for.
Yeah, definitely
Hammer
a British
strikes
poster.
again.
Yep. Then this is the one I think most people see nowadays.
Yeah, that's a good poster. It's not the one that I remember ever seeing,
but he does look more Ripperish here.
Yes.
Which works. I kind of like that idea of the story.
Oh,
and this one,
And
then this one is doesn't
shock after shock.
Yeah.
But I do like the thing in the right corner, the right hand side, the two naked people with the box covering their naughty bits. I mean, when you look at the taglines and everything, they really were pushing this as a much more transgressive movie than it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, considering the subject matter, the directions you could have gone, just imagine if the folks who do American Horror Story took a crack at this now. It's pretty tame in a lot of ways for a movie that involves
tame,
yeah. Considering the subject matter, we don't toy at all with the premise of of when is Sister Hyde his repressed homosexual self or something, because he doesn't seem to be too interested in the ladies, quite frankly, but then you say, well, is she gonna be going after the prostitutes? No, she seems to be into the guys totally. So maybe that's the premise. Maybe Sister Hyde allows him to indulge in his actual desires. But you really got to read deep into this movie to see that, because apparently it never occurred to the screenwriters, or if it did, it was buried so far down. I don't know that it's there.
Yeah, that it released his repressed gender identity, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might have been. Is that too taboo for 1970s, early 70s?
Oh, probably
British cinema. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's maybe it's a little before its time, but let's talk about the director, Roy Ward Baker.
And I did not make a slide for him, though I should have, because he's done some pretty cool things. They're not my favorite Hammer horror movies, but Scars of Dracula. I actually like Vampire Lovers.
Well, he did do one of my favorite, and that's Quatermass in the Pit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, well, then I take it all back. He's fantastic. That's like one of my all-time favorite Hammer horror movies.
Yeah.
Moon Zero.
You're absolutely right.
But then he followed it up with The Anniversary. You remember the one where Betty Davis had the patch?
Yeah. He made a lot of stuff, so not all of them were winners. But he also excelled in like The Vault of Horror and of course the one that if Asylum, another portmanteau, and the one that if we don't mention it, Jerry will send off an angry letter. Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires.
Oh my God, that's one of my. But he also did Vampire Lovers, which is probably more groundbreaking than this film is.
Right, and that's the one I think that really is the break between old Hammer and new Hammer, because we start getting, not so much implied things. We get actual nudity and lesbianism and all kinds of stuff that they wouldn't have touched before.
Yeah. So like in the space of a year, he did Vampire Lovers, Scars of Dracula, and Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. So he was a busy guy.
Well, after doing Vampire Lovers, that might be why he was pushing for full nudity on Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, because Vampire Lovers actually did very well, and I guess they thought, "Aha, we figured it out. We can't just have cleavage. We got to go the whole 9 yards here."
And then, like you said, Legend of Seven Golden Vampires is one of is probably the single best late 70s or mid 70s Hammer.
It's
there is no late 70s Hammer.
It was not the secret formula that was going to save them from bankruptcy, but it is certainly a glorious experiment.
If it had hit, Legend of Seven Golden Vampires would have led to a trilogy of these films with there was talk about doing Dracula in India. Yeah.
So that would have been interesting, taking Hammer out of England and exploring other elements of the area. Yeah, I mean, it could have been interesting, but the writing was on the wall. It's just Hammer's time had come and gone and been replaced by stuff that no matter how much nudity they threw at it, they were not going to be able to out nude Hollywood. They were not going to be able to out gore Hollywood. It's just
people moved on. They moved on from the Gothic horrors into the modern horrors. Like The Exorcist was the nail in the coffin, and then Jaws came around.
Night of the Living Dead. I mean, all those things.
Everything.
Hammer was a brand that people knew what they were getting. You were going to get some classy Gothic horror. And unfortunately, once things moved away from that, seeing, it's a Hammer movie made people go, oh, no, I'm not into that anymore. So their brand actually became toxic. Not to me, but I'm an army of one. So.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder. And now the screaming starts too. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but that was a crazy film.
I wonder if the audience. I wonder if they just didn't. The audience that they had basically outgrew those, or they never captured the young audience. The young audience, I guess is what I'm saying. The old audience stopped going to the movies, and then the younger audience didn't want to see this. So I think.
Well,
I think there's a lot going on.
I mean, you could argue part of the problem is that really, I'm saying, people knew what Hammer was. Probably nobody did except for the hardcore fans like myself. But we were, a lot of us were kind of young in 1970s, too young to go out and see their new direction, the nudity and violence and everything. Now this is being shown, as part of a R-rated double feature or something. But we're not going to be able to go see that. So they lost their one audience, the ones reading Famous Monsters who still knew what Hammer was and what it meant.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, this was rated PG now.
Now, yeah. It probably
that's what it was on that.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was always, right? Because they didn't have PG-13 back then.
Well, there was an X rating I thought in UK. I thought.
They gave X ratings to everything. Yeah.
Okay.
It's entirely different than our X. Yeah. Of course, the writer is Brian Clemens. We talked about that. We actually our last episode was one of his films, right? Bill, that was a cue for you to step in.
Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Yes, it was. As a matter of fact. And he also directed Captain Kronos, which we've done.
Oh, he directed it as well,
and wrote
it. Yeah. Now that's another film, and they've talked about remaking it. That's one that they could do something with.
Well, that's another one that I love the film, but watching it again, you think to yourself, this is hammer on a shoestring budget. What would this have been if this had been 1963 and we're making Captain Kronos? This would have been really something, a swashbuckling Robin Hood / vampire. It would have been off the charts cool. It's still good what we got, but it's only a shadow of what it would have been.
So what did you mean by the X certificate was totally different? Because it wasn't age restrictive rating.
It is, but they gave it to movies that were just, that for us would be PG. Lots of Hammer movies were certified X, actually.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we have a number of British listeners, so I'm going to challenge those who are listening to explain the X certificate to us, and let's bring that in a future episode, because I would like it clarified as well. I just know that.
Well, I just took a quick look, and it says excluded people under 16 from 51 to 82, and then was replaced by that 18 certificate that we see on DVDs a lot, or 15 is another one that puts a specific age on it. But anyway, yeah, I would like to hear more about that too. What determined that it was rated X?
They have weird rules there. I mean, it was more violence than sex. I mean, Monty Python had nudity. They could get away with lots of stuff.
Oh, that's true.
That didn't seem to bother them much, but violence, yes. And sometimes it just gets a little weird. Like, I guess Enter the Dragon was banned in England for the longest time because of the nunchuck scene. They were afraid that, as in America, kids would see this and make their own nunchucks and try to do the Bruce Lee thing and just smack themselves repeatedly in the face.
Not somebody else but themselves. I love it.
Yeah.
Ralph Bates. Let's talk about Ralph Bates. I think his first Hammer film was Taste of Blood of Dracula, also 1970. And then he followed that up with The Horror of Frankenstein, which is a film that we need to do, but not one that I particularly want to. I still have not seen. That's one of the Hammer films I have not seen.
It's been so long. Maybe I'll like it this time, but I kind of doubt it.
Lust for a Vampire, Dr. Jekyll Sister Hyde.
God. I guess we'll have to do Lust for a Vampire too. And I just want to tell you right now, there's a song in there that will haunt your nightmares for the rest of your life.
And then he did a couple of, that was pretty much it for the Hammer films. He did Fear in the Night, but that's not necessarily what you think.
If I understand the story right, he was supposed to be Dracula, or the head vampire in Taste the Blood of Dracula, and then Christopher Lee decided to come back, and so Bates got sort of put into this lesser secondary role, though he's quite good in it.
And he has more screen time than Dracula.
I don't really see him as a great Dracula. I don't know. But he was a good actor, so he never got the chance to do it.
How was he?
I think he was good in this.
Victor Frankenstein.
The movie is so terrible. There is nobody. The idea that apparently Cushing was supposed to be in Horror of Frankenstein, and then his wife was very ill, so they replaced him. I'm not glad his wife was ill, but I'm glad he got replaced, because that movie is just such a misfire. It's a comedy, and the thought of poor, Peter Cushing doing his great Dracula, his great Frankenstein in a comedy, it just make my heart hurt. So, I don't know. Maybe again, when we see it, maybe I'll appreciate it more than I did the couple times I've watched it, because it's been a while. But not a fan.
Not a fan.
He was fine. It's not his fault. He did what he was supposed to do, and so I got nothing bad to say about him.
All right, Martine Beswick. Sorry, I don't know why I stumbled over that.
Nothing bad to say about her.
But she's a Bond girl, right?
She is.
Thunderball.
Mm-hmm.
Thunderball,
And,
right? I don't know if you said she is or she is.
Fine.
Oh, she was also in From Russia with Love. So,
Yeah,
she
so
doubled
she's.
up.
I mean, is she the only Bond girl to be in 2 movies,
I doubt
playing
it.
2 different characters?
Maybe. 1 Million Years BC. She's
Yeah,
supporting.
she.
Prehistoric Women.
Terrible movie, but she looks quite fetching.
Yeah. Seizure from 74. Now that's a weird one. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah, and she's in From a Whisper to a Scream, very briefly, more of a
Oh,
cameo,
yeah.
but that's cool.
That's Seizure's an Oliver Stone movie.
Oh, that's right. It is.
Jonathan Frid is in it as well.
It's an odd
and a little guy that we all know, Hervé Villechaize.
Yes.
It's definitely a film that we need to cover at some point. But I keep forgetting that that's an Oliver Stone film.
Yeah.
Man.
Humble beginnings.
She was in 2 episodes of $6 Million Man. How do you like that? She was a belly dancer in Beretta. I love that.
She's got that dark gothic look. I mean, if you can't get Barbara Steele, Martine Beswick, she has a face that was made for these kind of movies. Not that she was monstrous or unattractive, but just there's a lot going on here, and she has fun in this role. She's got some gleeful looks to her. The scene, and it's very exploitive when she first transforms. She does what I guess I would do too if it happened to me. Immediately stick her hands under her shirt. That's so comical, but she makes it work. Because she's just got this joy at what she's accomplished, that it worked and everything, and it could have been a whole lot sillier.
It does make sense in the context of the story. It does. It didn't feel exploitive, although it leaned that way. But yeah,
it would have if they'd gone with Ralph Bates' idea of having him played in drag. And I think he could have pulled it off, but I think it would have been silly. Look at that thing from Prehistoric Women wearing that bone crown and everything. That was Hammer made 1 Million Years BC, and it made a bucket load of money. And then they kept trying to do it without Ray Harryhausen, like Prehistoric Women and Creatures the World Forgot. Creatures the movie forgot. There's no dinosaurs in it, and it doesn't work. But she's fine. Look at her. She's awesome looking. She held her own against Raquel Welch.
Yes. And she's definitely, rocking it down there at the bottom. From Dr. Jekyll. All right, we forgot to look at Ralph Bates because it also has. You can see here where they look so similar.
Yeah,
they did. This is just a great job of casting. If you said these two were actually related, I'd be like, well, yeah, look at them. I'm sure that some of that's makeup, and they do some tricks, parting the hair and everything else. But structurally, it is not beyond reason to say, if he's going to turn into a woman, he's going to look a lot like Martine Beswick.
Yeah, and I like when we first see her, the hair is like not long yet; it's behind her before she pulls it out, so you don't get the idea that the hair grew at first. You feel like it's the same hair. It's like, oh man,
yeah. Somehow or another, her hair grew inside of her coat collar, jacket collar. Yeah,
that's the perfect way to do it, right? There you go. There's the other roles.
Now that one on the bottom, although I hate Lust for a Vampire, maybe it's just that song, but I don't think so. He has a really good role in it. He is a good actor. He's got range. And so he died at a fairly young age too, which is a shame. He could have gone a lot further, but yeah, I mean, I want to like horror. Frankenstein. It's got David Prowse. It's got David Prowse in it and everything, but it's. I don't know what they were thinking though. They actually said at this time, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, they're getting a little long in the tooth. They were probably in their 50s or 60s at that point. It's like, we're going to replace them with Ralph Bates. And like, guys, I don't think you get this. I mean, the thing that they brought to the roles had nothing to do with their age. Christopher Lee was, just a huge mountain of a man and had that
it was the
presence.
Yes.
Yeah, the absolute presence.
Voice.
And Peter Cushing just exudes intelligence. You know, he's just made for a Dr. Frankenstein or
I'm
a
sure it
Van
had
Helsing.
just as much to do with money as anything else.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, Gerald Sim plays our skeevy doctor. It does a great job of it.
A great job. And that's him at the bottom playing one of the characters in Dr. Phibes Rises Again. He's the one who ends up with his face blasted off by sand.
Yes, nice.
Yes, he's down at the pyramid or the dig.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I really liked his role in this movie.
He's got a lot of credits.
Yeah, he was in Frenzy. We did that recently, but I don't know how big of his role was. He was called a solicitor in the pub.
Oh
yeah. Those two guys that were talking about the killing in the pub.
That's right. Yeah.
Right before Dr. Phibes Rises Again.
Yeah.
And right after Dr. Jekyll Sister Hyde.
He had a good career.
He did.
I feel like the British movies always had the advantage of there was a big supply of good British actors because British theater was really a thing, and these guys the men and women were trained, you know, in Shakespeare and all this stuff. There's a certain level of quality that you could get just getting actors. You know, they're all good. It's rare to see one that really stinks up the joint.
Stinks up the joint. Oh my goodness.
I mean, as opposed to say American,
anyway, right?
Yeah, like some of the American movies, all of a sudden there's someone in there and you're like, whose niece was this? Because boy. So now this, I forget this actress's name.
What, Susan? It's Susan Broderick. Sorry,
Susan Broderick.
Right?
She didn't do very much. But I thought she was fine here. It's not a flashy role. There's not a whole lot that she has to do in this, but she plays innocence very well. And she's got a nice, clean look and all. She's more realistic than all the prostitutes they have there who are just like bombshells running around. It's like, boy, no. If you've any research you've ever done about England from that era and what those working ladies were like, it's not like a Hammer movie, that's for sure. Everyone is much cleaner and disease-free.
Well, this was
Dracula.
I was going to say this is our second Hammer film. The first one being Countess Dracula. Yeah.
Oh,
Peter Sasty.
That's another film we need to do at some point. Yep.
Oh yeah.
But she. The problem is I didn't like her character. She seemed so entitled, right? And she was like, she barely connected with Dr. Jekyll, but she was like all upset that he went out with somebody else. Like, what? Right. You don't have any say so in
this. She seemed more like a teenage girl than an adult. Like she wanted, I don't know. She wanted to run. Anyway, she was asking her mom, "Is it permitted for me to go down and check?" And
she's very
no, not with that. Yeah.
And then, so let's say this.
I was just gonna say, it just shows you the attitudes and everything. That everyone is so prim and proper. Even our sleazy doctor guy is like, well, you could come over to my place, but of course you'd be unchaperoned. Like even he says, well, that's too much. I can't expect a widowed woman to and she's like, yeah, come on, let's go.
Let's go. Like, what are you talking about? Oh man. Well, we don't have a picture of him, but I've lost his name here. Where is his name? Louis Fiander plays her brother, the other character's brother, who has a thing for Mrs. Hyde. He was also in Dr. Phibes Rises Again. He played a character named Baker. I'm not really sure who that is.
Was he the guy who got killed in The Scorpion?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't really see a whole lot of genre stuff for him. I mean, he did like a couple of TV shows that are supernatural, like one called Supernatural, for example. Not the one we know. This was a long time ago. And I believe there's another one, if I can find it. Or maybe, I don't know. There's Mystery and Imagination, but I don't know much about that. It's all British TV, I would imagine. But He played against his sister really well.
Yeah.
I thought, because she was so, I don't know, so like I said, entitled, and he played on that quite a bit.
Yeah, he was getting the evil eye from their mom once in a while. It's like, well, you wouldn't think he's going to stand me up, would you? And he's going to jump right in and go, well, hell yes. But he goes, oh no, I guess the clock is a little slow too, or something, or my watch is a little fast.
Yeah, it's very foggy outside.
After getting a look from his mother.
Yeah, I guess the last actor we should mention before we move on to some other things is there's an actress, Virginia Wetherill. We don't have a picture for her, but she has a small role. She plays one of the prostitute victims that gets killed. And the reason why we need to bring her up is Ralph Bates and Virginia Wetherill met on the set and were later married.
Well, that's sweet.
Yes. So he got to kill her and then marry her.
Oh,
like a good Dr. Jekyll would.
Oh, they met cute.
And apparently she played a bride of Dracula in the Dan Curtis Dracula.
Oh.
It lists her as Dracula's wife, so I guess.
Hammer made. I didn't realize this. Hammer made 3 Dr. Jekyll films. I knew about the 2 Faces of Dr. Jekyll, but I didn't realize the Ugly Duckling was one as well.
I've never seen that one. Is that one of the comedies? Hammer made a ton of stuff that we never even think about as being Hammer. I mean, we think of Hammer as just basically the Gothic, but they did comedies. They did a lot of British comedies that never played over here because I think the jokes just would go right over our heads. Yeah.
1959.
Yep.
John Pertwee's in it.
a bungling and awkward buffoon, Henry Jekyll.
Oh. Buffoon.
Spelled Jeckle.
Yeah.
Bill, do you want to do the taglines that we have for this?
Well, sure. Since as you've noticed, Chad is not here. We miss him, but in his honor, I will read the taglines. I just want to say these taglines lie. Okay. 1. The sexual transformation of a man into a woman will actually take place before your very eyes. Huh? So if you're into that kind of stuff, you want to see this movie.
Won't happen. It's like the guy turned inside out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You'll see a man turn. No, you won't. This film is filled with shock after shock. I mean, they use capital letters and everything. And also not really true. There's not a whole lot of that. And then the last one, kind of a friendly warning. Parents, be sure your children are sufficiently mature to witness the intimate details of this frank and revealing film.
I bet you that backfired.
I can't imagine any responsible parent taking their kid to see this is like, oh man, I've been putting off talking about the birds and the bees, but I don't think this is the film that I should spring on them
here. Yeah. This idea of the transformation, I really like the scene. They set it up with when she throws the dagger and it sticks in the mirror. That's a really cool shot, I thought. And then later when she's looking in that mirror and her face is sort of morphed or fractured into the, it was very cool. I thought it was.
I think I had creepy. One slide there on transformations that had some of the.
Yes, it has it at the top.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And the little tricks they did where it's her face, but it's his hands, and then of course the big and look, it doesn't work 100%, but I'd give him credit for even trying the initial transformation using the fake mirror, and trying to do the old thing where the person in front of the mirror and the person behind the mirror, which is just a cutout, it's not really a mirror, is trying to imitate their movements. Okay, that was pretty well done. No, it doesn't completely sync up. because it never does. But
they did a good job.
They tried. They did. I thought it was clever.
I kind of wanted to mention one scene, and we get it right from the beginning, or one character, and it's for lack of a better term, I'm going to call her the singing prostitute, but we never do see her be a prostitute. She's just walking through the pubs and singing. And I kept thinking, well, why do they keep showing this character? I think she does get it towards the end, right? Is she like the last victim?
I think she might be.
Yeah,
but I think that comes from the 40s Body Snatcher, because there's a character like that, and at some point, Karloff does her in.
Oh my! You all right? The cat transformed into Mrs. Hyde.
Jeez, yeah, I'm all right.
Well, at some point, Karloff, she's walking through a passageway, and I think his carriage goes after her, and you hear her singing, and all of a sudden it like, goes into like a high shriek and stops, and you know that he killed her, and she's just the sweetest girl and sings the sweetest songs. And so I kind of felt like this character was sort of like they stuck, because otherwise why, I guess, or maybe just have something different than just prostitutes, I guess.
Maybe.
But I enjoyed those throwbacks to the Body Snatcher. Yeah. And the guy that was, I don't know what he was, biker. And the
Birkin hair.
The two the Birkin hairs, those guys were great, especially when he becomes blind and he's out there.
It's amazing how often those guys show up in these movies, and you realize Birkin hair are a very British thing. I mean, they are a boogeyman for, just like Jack the Ripper, who's more well known here, but Birkin hair, they're not as most people wouldn't know what you meant if you said Birkin hair, but I think everyone in England knows exactly what you mean.
Oh, sure.
You know?
And I like the glasses that he had, because they were like opaque, but they looked like they wanted to be reflective, but they were more
just
opaque.
Game cool. I'll be hold on a sec. I gotta check something here.
All right. Bill's got to pick up all the disaster.
So anyway, I thought it was kind of neat how they melded all that stuff together. Sometimes it feels kind of forced, but I thought it worked okay. That Jack the Ripper really was just Dr. Jekyll, who's having to slice people open and get their some organ out of them that he gets his change juice from.
This changes with some kind of gland or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That was, I gotta say, that was one of the, usually there's a lot of thought and effort in, electricity and bubbling chemicals and everything, and they just cut right to the chase. Yeah, I cut open prostitutes, pull out some bits, and feed them to flies, and they change their sex. It happens. Okay, moving on. They're not going to waste a minute explaining and making this thing plausible in the slightest. If only it were that easy, right?
Yeah.
But, okay.
This Dr. Jekyll isn't the brainiest Dr. Jekyll we've ever had in cinema, but hey, we've had worse, though. We've had worse. That's for sure.
No, and it's not as violent, and by nature of Sister Hyde, I think it's not as violent. We don't have the Hyde thrashing around, destroying things, and like we do in a lot of the other movies.
We do get some of that Kensington red, though. We get that day glow, totally unrealistic hammer blow.
I love the shot where she kills the Gerald Sims character. I thought that was great.
Yes.
They go into a big clinch, and she raises that knife high up
and just slides it into his back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Wow. That angle would do nothing.
Well, it would definitely sting.
Fun times.
Yep. The whole, I don't know. I really like the way they filmed. Was it Burke or Hare that got blinded? Because the other one got strung up, right?
Hare.
And
Hare.
when he's in the lie, right? And is that what it was? And
that's what the one woman said. Yeah.
Right, and he comes out and it was a great shot. The focus was fantastic. It was really good. Roy Baker was, I guess we would call him a workmanship kind of director,
Right.
but it was, I mean, he did some really cool stuff. Like there's some really great shots in like Asylum that he would do later and stuff. He was a strong director, did good stuff.
Well, I think maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but it's also interesting that Hands of the Ripper came out the same year.
That's right.
That's right.
Featuring a female version of the Ripper, right? Was it the Ripper's daughter that was?
Oh, that's right.
That's right. That's right. Well, if Hammer figures, survival involves lots of breasts, they might as well start gender swapping the creatures and give a logical reason for it.
They cranked out Hands of the Ripper, Dr. Jekyll, Sister Hyde, and the 3 Vampire Lover, the Karnstein trilogy, I guess, pretty quick.
Yeah, you're right about the remake. It was I don't know if it was remade, but there was I think that might be stretching it, but a Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde in '95. I think you mentioned that with Tim Daly and Sean Young.
Tim Daly.
It won the Razzie Award for worst remake ripoff. So Carolyn Monroe and Julie Eggy. Sorry, do you know how to pronounce that name? E.G. Were both offered a part of Sister Hyde. I think they did the right choice. I love Carolyn Monroe, and she turned it down because of the nudity, so that would have been taken off the table. But I don't think she would have been right for this. Not compared to Martine Beswick, who I think is perfect in the role. Besides the fact she looks so much like Dr. Jekyll, also she just conveys that, that cold evil. She does. She's a little more wiry of a frame. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen Carolyn Monroe be evil. Yeah. I mean, she's still very voluptuous, but it's more, it's not, I don't know how to, it fit this type of role very well. Yeah. Very well. Wiry is not the right word, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
This Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde, it's billed as comedy, romance, sci-fi, and they had by 95 had gotten into the morphing the faces. So change. Right. Oh, sure. They couldn't do much here. They did the one thing at the end, and it doesn't work entirely. But again, kudos.
But did it need it? Did it need it?
No. I mean, just say when you see him dead at the end, and it's sort of like they've taken a mask of his face.
They've done some kind of
Yeah. It didn't work entirely, but okay, that's cool. No, I don't think listen. There's no sense in wasting a lot of time having a transformation effect because it's ludicrous. You can't just go back and forth. The bones would be. It should be like American Werewolf in London when he transforms into her. It should just be really, really painful.
You see the boobs come out.
Yeah. and then when she turns back into him, where do they go? They just drop on the floor or what? I mean,
Well, when he changes in her, where does that go?
It's an incredibly fast change too. Incredibly fast, back and forth in a couple scenes in seconds. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's just
no hair. Hairy arms, no hairy arms.
Alcee becomes an Inzie, and the Inzie becomes an Alcee, and I guess it's just
You're talking about navels, right?
That's it. That's what he's talking about.
All right. What else do we want to say about this film? Is there anything else to say about this film?
It's just a weird concept, but I think it's worth watching just because it does have some.
And
there's some uncomfortableness to it.
They play it straight. To their credit, it's a silly premise that could very easily be made fun of, but they don't. They play it straight. They don't dwell on any of the obvious, questions that would make it all just blow up. And because of that, you can go along for the ride and enjoy it for what it is. Not the best Hammer, but still Hammer.
Yep. Some might find it a little dull, but others might find it, interesting in the, British sort of way, I suppose. That sounds like I'm insulting it, but I'm not. I mean, meaning that it's more conversational and, it's more about even though there's, he becomes a Jack the Ripper, it's really not about that. That just happens to be a little, sauce on the top. It really is about him finding this thing, and then it just ruins him instead of being the cure, right? To be this longevity thing. But they don't take advantage of it. And I think that's where it misses the mark. They don't take advantage of what does this mean? Because he doesn't remember being her and she doesn't remember being him at first. It seems like later she does. It got a little confusing about that. Because she started like doing things and like buying dresses and having them sent to the house and stuff like that. He's like, you open up, oh, this is my jacket. No. And
that's the most passion he shows in the whole movie. With his jacket,
except for dinner.
And I don't know how to pronounce it either, but you mentioned Julie Iggy. She was also a Bond girl on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
That's a weird one. Yeah.
And then was later in The Freakmaker. I think you guys either
we sure did.
I can't remember.
Had fun with
and she's in that one that I keep trying to find a decent. Legend of Seven Golden Vampires as well. But she's in this weird movie called Craze, directed by Freddie Francis and starring Jack Palance, Diana Dors, and there's some other Dame Edith Evans.
I think that might be on Tubi.
Well, that'd be nice if there's a better thing. It's a cult, it's a supernatural cult thing, and I think Jack Palance is the leader of it. But I tried to watch it somewhere, and it was I think even on Prime, and it was just so bad I couldn't. I tried watching it too because I found it fascinating that Jack Palance was in this, but it was shite. The copy was shite. Yeah. That might be the only copy out there, though. Well, there you go.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and give our recommendation and a favorite scene. Bill Mulligan.
Oh, boy. What's wrong? Listen, yes. No, I'd recommend it. I'd recommend it especially for Hammer Completists. You got to watch it. And it's not as bad. I think its reputation is not as good as it actually is. For a while there, it was hard to see that it didn't get shown much on TV where I was. And as far as a favorite scene, I'm probably going to steal yours. I do like the guy going face first into the big tub of lye that they inexplicably leave lying around. It's dangerous stuff. Why would you have that there? It's like that room full of razor wire in Suspiria. Why would you have such a thing? It's just asking for trouble.
It seemed like it was like the British version of tar and feathering of the time.
Yeah,
that's what it seemed like.
But if I wanted to tar and feather someone, it would actually take a lot of effort because I don't know about most places, but Sanford does not have a big giant tub of hot tar just sitting around waiting for someone to abuse it. But
maybe it was more common back in the day.
I guess they used it to bury people. So
there you go. Jeff.
Yeah, I think it's worth seeing. You're not going to go, wow, this is a great movie. I don't think. Although I think I've heard some people say that, but so you might be one of them. But I enjoyed it. I wasn't bored. It was interesting, and like I said, there was a certain amount of I was creeped out a few times, and I don't think it was because of the gender change, but it was just creepy how close their faces looked, and sometimes the way they shot it, she looked really masculine and he looked really feminine. And then when she'd be, and they did that really well with those hands. I know it's simple, but you could have easily had those at an odd angle that didn't look right. And it always looked right to me when it'd be his face and you see the feminine hand reach up or vice versa. My favorite scene, I'm going to take the one I already talked about where she throws the dagger into the mirror. I don't know why, but that was, very cool.
It was well shot. And like I said, every once in a while, this director really gets a really good shot in there, and he does that in his other films as well. I'm a Hammer nut. I love Hammer films. Like I said, I think there's a number of Hammer films that I haven't seen, and the Horror of Frankenstein is definitely high on that list.
We'll do it.
unfortunately. But anyway, so if you're a completist and you want to see 70s Hammer, this is a pretty good place to end up. It's not their best, it's not their shining example by any stretch of the imagination, but there are worse. There's far worse than this. But to me, it's more of a curiosity piece, I guess. It's a completist or curiosity piece. My favorite scene, I'm going to go with the first time she changes and the brother walks in from upstairs, and he's just like, he just stands at the door and looks at her, and she doesn't even realize, because she's
apologizes for 5 minutes for staring.
Yes,
I know, she's got everything open because she's Jekyll's trying to figure everything out. So
yes.
I thought it was hilarious.
Beg my pardon. Yeah, he does. He takes a long time to.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm
Actually
so sorry. I feel terrible. I probably should have left 5 minutes ago to keep apologizing.
maybe 10 minutes ago now.
Dreadfully sorry.
All right. Where was this playing, Jeff?
Oh, that's a good question. You throw these questions. I'm not thinking about them at the time. So talk amongst yourself for a minute.
Well, I can tell you, it's playing on Peacock, right?
Yep,
Peacock?
That's where I saw it.
And Shudder, I think too. Isn't it
Shudder,
on?
maybe. Might be. It's on Tubi.
Okay.
Most anything you find is on Tubi for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, everything's on Tubi.
But I watched it on Peacock as well. I kept wanting to say Paramount there for a hot second. All right, so definitely check this one out and let us know in the comments what you think of this film. Jeff, you said earlier we have some feedback. Do we?
We do.
Let's jump into it.
I'm still typing stuff in here.
No, nice. He's typing in more feedback.
Yeah, you're right. It's not on Shudder. It's on Peacock and Tubi are the main ones that we usually do. And Freevee. I don't know if you've watched any of those, but I like Tubi better. All right. Feedback. Well, the first one is a recommendation from our friend Andy L. He says, I do admit to occasionally forgetting everything that you've already covered, but I'm pretty sure you have not done one of my favorite made-for-TV movies from the 70s, A Cold Night's Death, also known as
Andy.
Chill Factor, starring Robert Culp and Eli Wallach in a lonely Arctic primate research station. Very atmospheric, and two great leads made this very enjoyable. I believe it is available on YouTube. And yes, it is. I totally agree with him, because I think maybe he suggested this before, like even a couple years ago, and I went and watched it.
This is one of my favorites.
It's a great movie, but the versions that are out there suck. They're just really poor resolution. So I have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, let's do that. I've not seen this.
Robert Culp and Eli Wallach
stranded
frozen.
And there's nothing scarier than apes.
Stuff happens. Eli Wallach, yeah.
Great.
So anyway, I'm totally with you. Then he goes on to say, I think you might have already done the Stone Tapes. I don't think we have. A British TV film from 1972. But not sure if you ever covered A Warning to the Curious from the same year. Neither British film is horrifying, but I still think that they're well worth watching. So I'm not familiar with those. Is anybody typing those in right now?
I have heard of the Stone Tapes. I'm familiar with it. I don't believe I've seen it.
I looked it up when I first saw this, but I wasn't seeing. So anyway, Andy says, take care, live long and prosper. And
thank you, Andy.
Same to you, Andy, and appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're totally with you on A Cold Night's Death. So it's one of those ones on my list that I keep keeping an eye out for, like somebody restores it in some way. Now he'll probably send me. He frequently sends me information about, like 50s TV series I can buy on DVD from Walmart for like $20. So maybe this is out there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. All right, next one up. Episode 123, and now the screaming starts. From Status 01.
I love it.
Good show. It's rare that I like a podcast with so many people, but I like all of you guys.
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
Very much appreciated. Having never met you, I like you too. Or nice
You're a good
comment.
judge of
Appreciate
character.
it. Number 145, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, from John Duffy III. Great video.
Short and sweet.
Short
I
and
like
sweet.
that.
Short, sweet.
Yep.
And that, you know,
Consider-
because it was weird. You know, I was looking at Turner Classic Movies the other day, and I posted it on the Facebook page, but they had like, I think it was either 6 or 8 movies in a row that we had done on 70s and classic era. All right in a row on Monday, I think, over Tuesday overnight. Anyways, and this was one of them, Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. Episode 157, Flesh for Frankenstein, from Lone Wolf. And this is, we found this out on one of the other podcasts. Lone Wolf was catching up and going in and making comments on a lot of stuff, and we appreciate that.
Yes,
So Lone Wolf
we do
says
enjoy
about Flesh for Frankenstein. Is it me, or did this feel like Hammer's Young Frankenstein on acid? The funniest part was Udo Kerr judging his soon-to-be victim by his ability to resist women. He must be a powerful man, quote unquote. Too many funny moments to count. Baron Frankenstein getting his monster couple to make love. Frankenstein's cougar wife who has no eyebrows. The assistant. The friend who sounds like he walked out of a Bronx delicatessen. The severed hand being thrown. It was pure 70s insanity. The gore is so good, and even though the acting is almost on the level of Trauma, Udo's performance is worth it. I think I want to watch it again, and I don't normally say that about most bad movies.
It is a bad movie, but I love it.
Thank you, Lone Wolf. And Lone Wolf again, Redux on 173, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Oh, goodness, this was a treat. It was great to hear Bill's love for The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Nice. Golden indeed. I've said before that Harryhausen was the Stan Winston of his time. What I mean by that is that they both gave us this grand sense of wonder when looking at their monstrous creations. No other special effects artist has been able to make me feel that way. No disrespect to other great special effects titans of our time, of course. Oddly enough, Sinbad was never as much of a favorite for me as other heroes such as Hercules, Robin Hood, Zorro, etc. That being said, it doesn't keep me from loving this legendary movie. Carolyn Monroe's cleavage looks like someone ran a floor buffer over it to make it shiny.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
Yeah. She's beautiful, and she's always a welcome presence to the screen. Although, to be honest, I was more in love with my favorite Bond girl, Jane Seymour, who was in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. Jeez, that movie missed the mark. Anyway, it's always a fun time with you guys, and I'm looking forward to the next film, Lone Wolf out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I wonder how these might be different things, because Robin Hood and Zorro was big on TV when I was a kid in the 50s. But there could be other incarnations of those that Lone Wolf was into. And now, the one we knew was coming.
Jerry
Chandler on The Visitor, 174. He actually made like 5 comments. he was
just smashed them all together
as he was listening to it. So, yeah, I put them all together. I'm 3 minutes in. Is there a middle finger emoji? I need a middle finger emoji to properly respond to your comments so far. I did say something about the poster looking like some character from Babylon 5, and Jerry, being a Babylon 5 fanatic, said, I believe Jeff is referring to Kosh, the Vorlon ambassador, and he's exactly right.
Nerds.
For the record, Chad's comment about my perfect double feature, I hate Exorcist 2. He had suggested The Visitor would be a perfect double feature of Exorcist 2 for Jerry. I blame it for the tepid embrace fans gave the far superior third film at the box office. I blame it too. Yeah. Okay. Houston played a character called Jerzy Kalzowitz, but Nero wasn't Yawa. Based on the story, Nero's character is telling, and the apparent command position of Houston's character. I think he's supposed to be the descendant Yawa, and the implication of that, and some lines in the film where he interacts with other characters, is that his family line retains whatever power the original Captain Yawa had to defeat the Satan stand-in long ago. Or he is Yawa and he's immortal.
Take your pick.
Way more thought than I put into it, Jerry, but I appreciate it. In all honesty,
more
with
thought
no
the
snark.
screenwriter put into it.
In all honesty, and with no snark and almost no middle fingers, which would be appropriate since that's the bird, this is a film that's a bit like The Keep. It's a completely insane fever dream drug trip. You don't watch it when you're in the mood for horror. You watch it when you're in the mood for insane narratives that might not make sense but have crazy visuals. That's a good description. This is a kind of a party movie. It's a film you can have the most fun with when you can watch it as a group. You know what you're getting into, and you're going in with the intention of having fun with it. Like either Bill or Jeff said, somewhere in the middle of discussing everything except the film. It's a movie that makes a great DIY MST3K night. Yeah. But as much as I like it, it's not a film I pull off the Blu-ray shelf all that often or when I'm in the mood for horror. It's a film I reach for when I'm in the mood for Bat Guano crazy, but not Bat Guano crazy with deep thoughts attached like an El Topo or Holy Mountain.
El Topo.
Wow. It's the movie you get when you're in the mood for a nonsensical fever dream drug trip and can't find The Keep streaming anywhere.
Keep.
Fair enough.
We got to start inviting Jerry onto these ones that we know. Just
that's
otherwise.
True. Well, if
I'm going to have to read a essay at any rate. But I do appreciate it, Jerry, because this is interesting, and seriously, that was a lot of thinking about Yawa. And I
What's
know
the
that
one with the
Houston's
hand? Demonoid?
Yeah.
We got just because Chad probably wouldn't be on that episode.
I felt like he thought that saying that John Huston played a character named Jersey Kalsowitz explained something, but
we were trying to figure out who he was. I think we might have even forgotten that they called him Jersey.
Well, his name was on the credits that way. I knew that, but
right.
I didn't. It was obviously was something more than that.
Yeah, we had a conversation trying to figure out, because Nero was supposed to be the Jesus Christ character, right? And what was he? Was he?
Oh, it was sort of like saying, "You idiots, read the credits." His name was Jersey Kalowitz.
I think so. I think, but that wasn't really what we were trying to get after. But he's right. His name was Jersey. Do we have a pick for next week? Next week,
we do.
Now
we do.
It's my pick. Done it before.
I guess
I'm finally getting around to David Ruggiero, if he's still listening, requested this like a year and a half ago, and I put it on the list. And like right after I put it on the list, it dropped off of Shudder, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. Well, it's back on Shudder.
Okay.
And I was gonna do it my last pick, but I got overexcited about Lady Snowblood, and we did that instead. So Blue Sunshine is still on Shudder as we speak. So as long as it's here in 2 weeks, we will do it next.
It'll finally
and
get
it
to
sounds,
be the
Blue Sunshine. I think that was is that what the name they called some LSD versions or something, or
I don't know. This is a film I've never seen, so I'm
good.
Yeah, I would probably never watch it if we didn't do it like this. So
yeah,
this is good stuff. I'm excited.
Thanks, David. If you're out there, let us know.
Yeah,
I'll text you.
Let's not thank him until we see it.
Yeah, I better wait because I know that like 3 days before we record, it'll drop off at Shudder.
Oh, stop! Right. Especially when it's right at the end of the month here, it'll be gone by the time.
Right after Halloween, yeah.
All right, well there you go. That's our review of yet another Hammer film, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. And I guess I apologize if you guys didn't like it because it's my pick. I'm going to favor. I'm going to favor the Hammer films. One of these days you will.
I would have probably not watched it otherwise. So yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's a big jump up from The Visitor. Sorry,
Jeff,
Terry.
Bill, thank you for joining me. Chad, we hope you're back next episode. We
Yeah.
miss you, sir.
Come back, Chad. Come back.
Chad. All right, let's get out here and say goodnight.
Night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Gruesome Magazine.